Questions?
So this week I was contemplating on why do I always think about worst case scenario in every situation and all. And the thing that I arrived at, like two things basically. One is the surety in the worst case scenario, because that's the worst that could happen in every scenario,
The
right?
surety, right?
So
The,
if
the surety of it?
the surety, yeah,
Okay, the surety,
yeah,
the
yeah.
sureness of the
So
worst
like
case. Okay.
it's like, how should I say, good things will happen, then that's fine. But in the worst case scenario, worst case will always happen. So why not just prepare for the worst case scenario?
Okay.
And second part was any propositions to avoid this scenario, like learning a new skill or anything, to which my mind will basically say, yes, yes, that will help, but it may still fail. So the worst case scenario still remains the same. So go prepare for worst case again, and again back to the first point.
And so then it
So
will
it's
fade.
like
What will, did you say it will fade?
it will fail. Like
Fail. Okay.
whatever I do
It will fail. Whatever
in
you do,
worst
it
case
will
scenario,
fail.
it will again fail.
Okay.
So
So
it
why don't you, okay, so let's take those two in turn, right? You're
yeah,
sure that the
sure.
worst case scenario is going to happen.
Or even if good things were to happen, it's still better to prepare for worst case. That's what I was thinking.
Okay. How do you prepare for the worst case?
By imagining it, sometimes I just fantasize about it, like literally project myself in the future and think what can I do. But only thing that happens is I get scared. I start panicking and can't do anything.
Okay. So tell me about the worst case scenario. What does that look like?
Uh, yeah, so for me, these days was AI taking over my job, and within next 5 years, I will be homeless, won't have anything in my name, and because of that, like I'll have to live in really bad neighborhood or may not have any shelter at all, no medical facilities to avail in case something bad happens, and it would be like really huge fall from where I am right now. And just thinking about it scares me. Yeah. And
So how do you say that you want to prepare for that? How would you prepare for that? AI taking over your
I
job,
would say,
feeling helpless, ending up in a bad neighborhood or homeless. How would you prepare for
yeah.
that?
So I was thinking of preparing more towards AI related things because I have that kind of background. But now that I think of it, even those will be the first one that will get replaced. Then any other jobs, I feel like eventually they will also get automated by AI. So, and even if those don't get automated, there will be so many people who are unemployed that competition will be fierce. Like now, there is competition of around 100 to 200 people or 400 guys applying to a single software engineering position. Then it will be like 10,000 people. And I can see it in India. That happens a lot, and it feels suffocating. It feels you don't have any choice at all. And what can I do in that case? Like
That must
it
feel
feels
awful.
lots
That
of
must feel awful, right?
yep, and hopeless,
Yeah.
hopeless as well.
Yeah.
And that's these two are the only thing that I see. And even if I were to,
Now the first one
like, I
was
feel
was
like I am.
surety, right? Sureness that the worst is going to
Yeah.
happen, and the second one was what?
Even if I were to do something in the worst case scenario, I will still fail. So back to the same worst case scenario that it's like I
Aren't
can't
these
escape this
kind of the
worst case
same
scenario
thing?
at
Aren't
all.
these kind of the same thing? You're sure that the worst case scenario is going to happen, and most of it's because of
Yes.
AI and unemployment. But the reason you're
Yes.
sure is because you're convinced you're going to fail.
Yes.
So we could reduce all of
Yes.
that into one thing, right? No? You're afraid you're going to fail.
I
So
don't know.
even if you were to prepare for AI and get some new skills, it wouldn't make a difference because you're going to fail.
Yes. Yes.
That's a very, that's a very common attitude among people. Where do you think it comes from?
From my past,
Ah, from your
one way
past.
that I can think of,
Without getting personal,
condition.
what in someone's past would make them sure they were going to fail if they've already succeeded once?
So one thing that I can think of right now is if suppose they are good in maths or analytic related things,
Hmm.
and then they see that in future AI will take over all the jobs around those things, and because they know that they are good at analytic related things, maybe they think that they are not good at, how should I say, interpersonal skills or anything
Hmm.
like a stereotypical nerd or something along those lines. And because of that, all the jobs that are related to interpersonal related things, they think they can't do a good job of it. And even if they can, there is so huge competition that they will always fail.
Okay.
That's what I think.
So now, how many people are in your situation worldwide? Let's say.
I don't know.
Take a guess.
Millions?
Yeah, there you go. Millions,
Billions?
right? So
Yes.
this is one of the problems with success, right? Is if you've succeeded, then anything less than that looks horrible. Like, oh my God, I'm going to fail. I mean, it's going to be awful, right? So that's why,
Yeah.
ideally, someone works their way up to the top. One doesn't just get it handed to them, professionally. And that's why in
Yeah.
many professions, we start uh, young people off low, and so they can work their way up, and they can understand that life is not like that. Life doesn't just hand you a 6-figure, 8-figure salary just because you exist, right? But in your case,
Yeah.
it seems like it's the opposite. You were everything was going along fine, and then boom, AI comes along, and oh my God, what am I going to do for work?
Yeah.
So let's say you didn't have this mindset that you're sure you were going to fail, right?
Okay.
And that the end was near. What would you do differently if you didn't have that mindset?
If I was not going to fail,
Yeah, let's say someone didn't have that mindset at all. They didn't have failure was not something on their bingo card, right?
I've not thought about it much. And
Well, let's try it.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
imagine somebody who magically, someone bing with a magic wand, right? And their fear of failure just vanished. What would they do differently? Speak in general terms, of course.
Yeah. What would they differently? I would argue if they have energy, at least I hope so, because
Good
they are
question.
not being burdened. They are not
Excellent.
being burdened by the same thinking again and again.
Excellent.
Then
Excellent question. First is energy, and the other one is compulsive, repetitious thought.
that would reduce a bit, I would argue, if there are, like, if they
Speak
don't
clearly.
have
Speak
fear.
clearly so people can understand. What was it? What the second part?
Yes. So the repetitive thought will vanish or it will reduce a lot because they are not afraid. That's what I think.
Okay, now we're doing that by magic. We're going to help somebody else, right? And what we're trying to do is
Yeah.
imagine what they would do differently than what you're doing
Yes.
now. And one of the things you objected. You said, well, they would have to have energy,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, good, good, good. And energy we know is a paramita, one of the 6
Yeah.
attributes that the Buddha teaches are necessary to be successful in the Dharma. So how does someone get energy?
Through food, through
Food, good.
restful sleep, and
Sleep, good, good,
exercise.
good. Exercise. Okay. So this person would be exercising.
Yes.
Let's call him Donnie. Donnie would be exercising.
Yep. Okay.
So you mentioned the energy part, and then you mentioned that he has these repetitive, compulsive thoughts, or these thoughts that just this loop of thoughts in his mind. Oh,
Yes.
everything's going to go to hell, and I'm going to fail if I try.
Yep.
Right? So now that he's working out, what else is he thinking about?
Those. If he's not thinking about the negative things because we cast no fear,
Have you ever
something
gone
on
to the
him.
gym or started running or something like that, and then you notice you were starting to lose weight?
A bit, yes. Yes.
Doesn't that feel good? In any case, whether it
It
feels good or
does
bad,
feel
but whether it feels good or
it does
bad,
feel good.
Donnie's thinking about something else. He's thinking about what he's going to do at the gym, and how much aerobic is he going to do, how much weights is he going to do, how much Roomba or whatever those dance things that women do. Of that he's going to do, and he's thinking in terms of calories and pounds or kilos or whatever. So during that time, he's not even thinking about this doom stuff, right? He's doing something else, and he's getting energy. That's the critical part. He's getting energy. All right. So this guy Donnie, now he's got some energy because he's taking he has some respect for his own body. He has some gratitude for the fact that he's even got a body, right? He's taking gratitude for the fact that he's not sick, right? Or he's not in some country where there's no hope at all, right? So now that he's got these things, uh, what would he do next?
First of all, yeah, but yeah, that's the yeah. But if he got these things, then he can he can start looking for things like other options.
Yeah, yeah, he would look for options, no? This guy
Yeah,
Don, yeah, he would
but
look for options, right? And this is a big, broad, beautiful world, in fact, even though the media and the little screens convince people that it's not. With the right mental attitude, this world is marvelous beyond description, right? So he starts looking for, what'd you say he was going to do?
he starts looking for a different job or
Okay, all right,
different
good. So he
career
starts looking
that he
for a
can
job.
do.
That's interesting. A different job. Cool. All right. So what kind of things does this guy Donnie enjoy?
Uh, Depends on his past, what he liked and all.
Okay. Give me some examples.
Uh, Maybe he was really into studies and especially into engineering related things,
Okay.
basically analytical things and all.
So does this guy Donnie, does he look for jobs in the same field, or is he more of a guy who wants to learn and to grow, and so now he's looking at related fields, or he's looking at the same field? Tell me more about this kid Donnie.
Like if fear has been eliminated for him, then I would argue he would be more of a learning guy.
Well, wait a minute. Where did what you said the fear had been eliminated for him? What does that mean?
Yeah. I think we assumed, right? For the Tony, there is no fear right now. Like
No,
we
all we did was
cast
assume that
upon
he
it
had
as well.
energy. All we did was assume that he had worked out and he was working out regularly, and that he now spends at least some of his time improving his physical state, which is going to improve his sleep too. And he has to eat better because now he's taking some pride in his own body, right? We didn't say anything about the fear yet, but if you want to go to the fear, but I don't think
Yeah,
he.
then
So
I would
after
say,
he does all this, but he's still got a little fear. Let's say that.
okay, if there is fear, honestly, what I think that would happen to Donnie would be whenever he's in gym, at the back of his mind, there will be some worry that he will not succeed and he won't get what he wants or anything.
But see, when
And
he's at
right
the gym,
after the gym,
go ahead.
yeah, that's what I said. Like when he's at the gym, he's like doing exercises, and during exercise as well, at the back of his mind, there will still be some thoughts saying that he won't succeed or he will fail or he will die in poverty in
But no,
future.
no, 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 no. I don't
And
think that's true. I think he'll be more concerned about how much weight can I lift today, how long can I go on the rowing machine or the treadmill, or how long am I going to be able to run today? You know, or you know, the other people in the Roomba class. No, it would give him relief. It would give him relief, at least for a while.
but
Because
because
you can't lift,
right
you
after
can't do
that gym
exercises
session,
if you're afraid, if you're paralyzed with fear. You can't. You're not going to be working out and taking care of you and taking pride of your body and all this other stuff.
then honestly, I would argue it would be really difficult for him to go to gym at all if
Oh,
his
why would it be
doom
difficult?
loops are small.
That's interesting. Why would it be difficult for him to go to the gym?
Because if he's in the doom loop, then I don't think he will be thinking about anything else.
Very
It's
good,
like
very good,
his,
very good, very, very good. Because he's thinking that way, right? And so, what do we learn from
yeah,
the 20th century? That it's easier to behave your way into a new way of thinking than it is to think your way into a new way of behaving. So with this kid, what you tell him is that, hey, it doesn't matter what you think, just go to the gym and get started, right? And do that for a while,
yeah.
and then your thinking will change. Behavior changes thinking. Thinking doesn't really change behavior, as you know.
But I have one problem with it. Like, how can you change? How can you behave your way to some new form when during the process of like behaving your way out of that new form, these thoughts keep arising. Like when you're trying to
But
go
whoa,
to
whoa,
gym,
whoa, whoa.
when you
But the thing is, you're posing a hypothetical that's tautological, right? And I'm saying that
it's not
from
hypothetical.
it's not okay. It's not hypothetical. So when Donnie goes to the gym, starts working out, joins a Roomba class, and is working on making his body look good, healthy, and eating better
Yeah,
and sleeping better, you're saying he's still going to have these thoughts. I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All
And
right.
like I would
So
argue
is he going to
he
fail at
has
the
an
gym? Is he going to
intention.
fail at the gym, or is he going to fail with at the gym, or is he going to fail in his work?
I don't get. I didn't get that honestly. Like
Okay. So look,
what I.
when you failure has to have an object, right? You have to fail at something.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Yes.
So, but he's at the gym. You're saying that as he's working out, he feels like he's going to fail. At the gym, his
So
failure would have to
I.
be of gym things, right? He's going to fail to be able to do the exercise routine.
So what I'm saying is, I do get that you need to behave like Donnie needs to behave his way out of his current situation.
No, no, he
But
just needs to
even if
change.
he
No, no,
knows
stop,
that,
stop, 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 stop. I didn't say that. I just pointed out that it's easier to behave your way into a new way of thinking than it is to think your way into a new way of behaving. People overestimate the power of their thought. And if they accorded with the way, right? What we call the way, or what other people would call the, God, the will of God, or other what people call the will of Allah, uh, or as the Buddhists call it, our Buddha nature, right? Or as the Hindus call it, Brahma, I think it is, or Atman. If we're working along, if we're working with that, right?
yeah.
Where's the failure? How's failure possible? If it's your mind against truth, how can your mind uh, beat down the truth? And the truth is that Donnie wants to get healthy. His body's screaming for better treatment. But Donnie's mind is the one that's like creating all of his problems, really, because he could also retool, develop new skills, and start in a new industry or continue in the same industry, and he would do all of those things because it was necessary. Because reality is speaking. Reality says, "Hey, I thought I was going to be set for life because I don't know, let's say I got a PhD in biology, or better, a PhD in physics. Like 19 out of 20 of those guys is not employable in physics, right? So they do other things. So Donnie sooner or later grows up and realizes, wait a minute, I wanted this. This is what I used to think, but now, because of the scaling up of the large language models, AI is here 20 years, 25 years sooner than anybody thought. So now I'm going to have to change with the time. Is that a problem? Why would that be a problem for Donnie?
Uh, that would not be a problem for Donnie,
Okay.
except for the fact that he can think about this, but a moment later, the negative thinking again comes back. Like,
But see,
I'm
the thinking
talking
doesn't
about,
matter. The thinking doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
but
Thinking is
how
like a
can you
bird
ignore
flying across the
thinking?
sky. It's literally a bird flying across the sky. It doesn't matter. Because
But
sooner or
what
later, Donnie
separates?
will realize that it's not the thinking, it's the fact that he's attached to the thought and he keeps following the thoughts. If you don't, let's say I have a thought, oh my God, there's going to be a nuclear war and they're going to blow up, I don't know, Boston or LA or
Yeah,
Miami or San Antonio. All right? So that thought comes.
yeah.
If I tried to, how long could I hold on to that thought? That's as if I was trying to, just as an experiment.
Honestly, till infinity, if that
Oh,
thought is
really,
really
really, really? So
scary,
you have thoughts that last permanently? A thought.
until death, but
What?
could be, could be. I
All
would say
right. I'd
could
like you
be.
to give me a thought that
Okay.
remains regardless.
That a thought that remains regardless. Like, it would remain regardless
There
of
you go. It
value.
will not
It
remain.
will
It's the
keep.
very nature of thought is to come and to go, like everything else, right? So maybe what Donnie needs is a little more education about how his mind works. Because if he thinks he's going to
But
have a
like,
permanent thought, he's got another thought coming. Ha ha. Hoo hoo. Pun. If he thinks because that's not reality. That's just completely that's crazy talk from a neurobiological point of view and a psychological point of view. So if Donnie were to pay attention to the phenomenology, if Donnie was to look at what's exactly there, he would notice that the thoughts don't stay there permanently. They come and they go, and they're replaced by another one. They go from AI to homelessness to living in a bad neighborhood to something. You know how it goes. There's a whole list of things in this cascade, right?
but what if I say, if there are just three thoughts that keeps getting rotated? Like, first you have fear of AI, then comes fear of this.
So
That's what
right,
peace could be,
but you
right?
can't get to the second thought if you don't pay attention to the first one.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Okay, I want you to imagine right now somebody, God forbid, right? Uh, let's see. Pick a part of the world that doesn't matter very much. Any part of the world.
Okay, cool.
Now I want you to imagine it
Kazakhstan.
being bombed with a nuclear bomb.
Okay,
All right, I want you to hold that thought. All right.
yeah.
Well, let's go. Let's do it. Let's go ahead and do it. Let's make it really intense. Okay.
Okay.
A city is to be bombed with a nuclear bomb.
Okay. Yeah.
What happened?
No, I think I switched to some different thought and
Yeah,
I tried to
because
just.
that's what thought is like. They call it phenomenology. That means looking at what is actually happening, as opposed to imagining you know what happens, right?
So,
So
do I
where do
even
your thoughts
have
come from? You
control over
think?
these
Oh,
thoughts?
sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, do I even have control of these thoughts? Like, I was thinking if
No. Who said you
thoughts
had
keep
control of the
changing,
thoughts?
then
Who said you had control of your thoughts? Whoever told you that?
yeah. And honestly, I was going to ask this question, but
Good,
like,
good, good. I love questions, but just remember, who told you that you had control of your thoughts? Okay, here we go. Question.
yeah. So, are thoughts always related to self?
Okay, say that question again.
But
Aren't thoughts always related to self?
yeah, I
No,
think
not at all. Didn't we
uh,
just think about a nuclear bomb in some other city somewhere in the world? God forbid. Was that related to
so.
yourself?
So
You don't
in
know
addition
this.
to
You don't
that,
know this, but thoughts are literally thoughts. A bird is a thought. You don't know that yet. You don't know that. An airplane going across the sky is a thought. It's just a different form of thought. It's not verbal. I know that sounds
is
radical.
that because yeah, okay, no, is that because we can only sense things through our just five senses?
Oh, good, good,
There
good.
could have
Five
been
senses.
some
What are
other
the five senses?
dimensions.
Give me the five senses.
Uh, how should I say? Vision,
Vision,
touch,
hearing,
smell. Vision, touch, smell. Then taste,
taste. Good.
and what's the final one? Is it thought? No, I don't remember.
Well, there's temperature.
Hearing, sorry,
I'm sorry, what?
and sound. Sound,
That's hearing,
hearing.
no? Look it up. Look it up. The
Yeah.
five senses. This is a very common conception, a meme that people have gotten.
Yeah, I think I missed out on hearing part
Okay, so let's go through them again. Seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling,
and touch.
touch. Okay, good. All right. So what do you observe your thoughts with?
I think in Buddhism, thoughts are also considered another, I believe, uh, senses. I believe it's kind of like sense of the past. Basically, it's
So how many senses
the
are there? What
in a way six
observes?
senses.
Go ahead.
Yeah, in a way six senses. The sixth one being thought. Thought being
Thought is not
the
on that
past
list.
perception of rest
Thought
of
is
the
not on that
senses.
list
What you
as a
okay?
thought is not on the list of senses.
Okay.
So
Okay.
are we missing one? Is there one we're missing? I know there's temperature. Also, we can sense temperature, right? Vibration, we
Yeah.
can sense
Yeah.
vibration, right?
Yes.
People's energy, we can sense that. But thought is the big bear, right? And so what do we observe thought with?
That's
For that matter, what do we observe any of these with?
question.
Huh?
That's a good question. I don't know.
See, that's what you have to
I
answer.
do.
That's what you have to answer. What is it that observes my thoughts? Because you said my, right? So it assumes you have an I, right? And then you called the thoughts yours. But I already gave you a thought that had nothing to do with you. Some random city being nuked. So that thought, at least, didn't come from you. Neither does the thought of crossed pencils. See? Crossed pencils?
Yeah.
Is that your thought?
No.
So then, where are these thoughts? Where are these thoughts coming from? And what's observing them? Those are the kinds of questions a young man should be answering.
one question though, like if there are no external stimuli, then the thoughts generated by self,
They're generated by what?
is it, then the thoughts that are generated, is it always about self? But,
Well, you can tell me that.
but
Are
that's
they?
not possible without living without external stimuli.
Very
I
good.
don't know.
Very good. And so next time you're in the shower and you're thinking, remember this question that you have, because you're the only one that can really answer this, right? So what you need to do is check to see if what the answer to your question is. It's very easy to answer. Just do it.
Got it.
If you want, we could do it right now. But I don't think it's necessary. Follow up or next question? So
Yeah,
in order
next
to master
question.
mind, in order to master your mind, you have to have some clue what it is, right? And you're making all these wild assumptions, these wild, fantasy assumptions that come from God knows where. That you know what the mind is like, and you know what you are like, and you know what you're sure what the bad scenario is going to look like, and you're also sure you're going to fail. But probably the reason you're going to fail is because you're making all these. Or you think you're going to fail is because all of these assumptions you're making about thought and about yourself. You're just assuming you know.
I was digging a bit deeper into it. Like the thing that I was afraid of was people saying, "I told you so," when they say that my job will be lost to AI, or
Are you the kind of person that
I'm
tells
just
people? Have you
afraid
ever
of
told
being.
someone "I told you so" or
No,
thought that?
no, I don't.
Okay, so where does that
That's
idea come
pretty
from? How are
arrogant.
you afraid of that? How's that going to hurt you?
It degrades me, I
Oh,
would
really?
argue.
It
I
degrades
feel
you or degrades
smaller,
your pride?
my pride,
Okay,
to be
good,
honest.
good. So what would you say if somebody,
Pride.
if that were to happen, what would you say?
I would say nothing. I would say,
Okay, maybe you later, when you know more, you'd say to yourself, probably, but not necessarily, thank you. A Buddha just came and taught me something about why pride is considered a cardinal no-no, a cardinal sin, and how pride makes you totally vulnerable to the opinions of others, and how if you are vulnerable to the opinions of others, you become their slave. And if those kinds of things are what you're afraid of, then you are paralyzed because you're the slave of other people, right?
yeah, like,
Okay, and
yeah,
furthermore,
by
you're assuming
definition,
you know what your self is, right? And then you're assuming
yeah.
that this self is going to be injured by somebody else's thoughts about you.
Not necessarily thoughts about me, but maybe a consequence of those thoughts. Maybe because the
Okay, I
things
like
I
the
have
distinction.
told
I
the
like the
people.
distinction, the consequences of the thought. So what? Let's talk about Donnie. So if Donnie is sure that everything's going to
Yeah,
go horribly, and because of that,
yeah.
he knows he's going to fail, and because of
Mm,
that, he never goes to the gym. What's going to happen to
yeah.
this guy?
It will spiral out of control and he will never leave his house and
Yeah,
just,
something like that. Yeah. He'll be one of the losers in this world, and there's billions of
yeah,
them, right?
yeah.
So, okay, another question.
Yeah, a bit different, I
Because
would
the
argue.
worst
So
case is
the
okay.
question,
The worst. Let's just say the worst is the end of the world.
yeah,
It's coming, right?
okay. When is it?
Now, would you rather be
Possibly, I have no
okay?
idea.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, 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 nothing.
So I mean, there's nothing on this earth except for consciousness, let's say, or life itself, which is not. It has nothing to do particularly with man's creating it, right? Everything else, nothing's going to last. Haven't you noticed? Nothing lasts. Nothing lasts.
So even Earth won't last. Honestly, it won't because at least,
I'm sorry. Speak more clearly.
yeah, even Earth won't last because honestly, there is a hard deadline of Red Giant. sun becoming a red giant and engulfing it, but it would happen sooner than that. Let's see.
You're talking about stars devouring each other or blowing up?
Oh no, so even Earth won't last
Right,
because
right. Even Earth
nothing
won't last.
lasts.
Earth won't last. So, and neither will what you're calling you. What you're calling you won't last. So what about the part of you that does last? You weren't, you didn't arrange your birth, or you didn't arrange for your body, right? And you certainly didn't arrange for consciousness, which is what makes all of this. None of this would even exist, including this discussion, if you didn't. I mean, if we were going from what things that you've done, quote you, or yourself has done. So this is called self-importance in the Toltec sense. By the way, there's a book here, the second book in this series, called Journey to Ixtlan, right?
Yeah.
And in there, there's chapters on erasing personal history, losing self-importance, death as an advisor, and assuming responsibility. Now, this is not so much about the student, Carlos Castañeda. Carlos Castañeda was not anybody to emulate in any way, shape, or form. But his teacher, Don Juan, and Don Gennaro, they're master teachers, right? And the thing is, it's entertaining. I think. I hope it's still entertaining. And for some people, mainly just young men, I'd recommend that book because of its focus also on self-importance and how that can really screw you up. Assuming responsibility and being inaccessible. Like, that's really, really cool. Being inaccessible. So you need to be able to be inaccessible also. And it's fun. It was like a big bestseller. It was like on the bestseller list for a year or years. This guy, people used to wait for his books to come out. But remember, it's not about Carlos. It's about another way of seeing. And we get to choose what world we live in. We get to choose that. People say there's no free will. They have no idea of how much free will we have. We choose the world we want to live in. And so if you live in a world where you're fearful of other people saying, I told you so, or criticizing you, or calling you a loser, or whatever, that's the world you chose. And so these thoughts, and so at the very least, I mean, you've taken some science. Do some science on your own mind. Okay? Understand it. Understand what these thoughts are all about. What are thoughts? And who's having them? All right? Okay, next question.
So I have internal dialogue whenever I think. I'm assuming most people have, but I've heard some people don't have it.
Who?
So one question regarding this.
Who doesn't have it?
So I don't know. I've heard.
Oh, come on. I heard. Who doesn't have internal dialogue?
I don't know. I can't.
Okay, so again, another assumption. And by the way, this book talks about stopping the internal dialogue and what they call stopping the world. Okay. And stopping the internal dialogue is like seeing with a capital S, seeing, right?
I was going to point that exact same thing because, like, whenever I contemplate, I talk through it. But if I were to use my internal dialogue, I'm just converting whatever I'm seeing into my language, which basically negates what I am seeing. Like,
give me an example.
I can't actually see.
Give me an example.
I'm just arriving this.
Actually, young women too. Young women also, right? Now, with a lot of reservations or a lot of caveats, because Carlos was Carlos, and he had real problems. I mean, real problems. But nonetheless, Don Juan, Matus, and Genaro Flores, those guys were real teachers. and it can be inspiring for some young men and women. I should have women too. All right, but keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I basically arrived at because like Krishnamurti talks a lot about it, right? Like
About what? About
language
what?
can't
Krishnamurti talks a lot about what?
about how we can't capture the truth through language.
Well, that's for sure.
Like language can just point to it, but you cannot capture it.
You can't
So
even. Yeah,
going with that
it's in the
logic,
opposite direction of truth,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So
Words are
this is what
limited.
like going with this.
Words are limited and limiting. All right, remember that.
Yeah,
All right, keep going.
but wouldn't that create problems for people who have internal dialogue? So whenever they try to contemplate, especially if they try to
People don't
contemplate on
have
truth
internal
or anything,
dialogue. People don't have internal dialogue. Dialogue happens to them.
how
You
does
don't
that
have. Okay,
happen?
let me.
Is it?
I want you to disprove this statement. Thoughts happen to you, not by you.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah, don't just
yeah.
say yeah. What do you tell me? How is that correct?
Like with the discussion that we had a few minutes ago, and
Okay. So now that you
honestly,
know that
I
thoughts
don't
happen,
choose.
go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. In a sense that we are kind of a state machine, and thoughts happen to us because of what
State machine,
happened
not
earlier.
state machine, right? A state machine is a
Yeah,
computer that generates a certain set of conditions. Is that right, or something like that?
yeah.
Roughly.
And
Okay.
it moves from one state to another depending on certain input.
Okay.
So it's
Good.
like moving from one thought to another depending on whatever external stimuli I have at that time. So
Right.
in a way, I don't can't control thoughts.
So that's the easy part. But now you could be lying in bed at night with your eyes closed, and then I want you to do this experiment. Am I having these thoughts, or are these thoughts happening to me?
Okay.
Okay, so the reason for the Castaneda is not so much the okay. Let me explain something. This is kind of important. In the first book is kind of worthless. It's all drugs, and Carlos gives up the drugs after the second or third book. He doesn't give up the drugs. Their usefulness for him are over. But excuse me, mixed up in the second book, sorcery is mixed up with seeing. Right now, sorcery, you could just forget about sorcery. Sorcery goes nowhere. Sorcery is morbid. Sorcery can be used for evil purposes, and it always comes back and it bites the sorcerer on the butt. Sorcery, right? So we don't care about the sorcery. What we do care about is the seeing, right? And stopping the internal dialogue, right? Or stopping the world. And they have a lot of metaphors for like this, but this is the new world. Uh, in the new world, the ancient Native American seers, right, from Mexico,
Yeah.
have a different methodology than do say the Indian Hindus or the Chinese, Japanese, or Bhutanese or Tibetan Buddhists, right? And it's fascinating to see, and it can be useful, very, very useful, but not if you focus on the sorcery. And as a matter of fact, the sorcery is the downfall and the limitation of the book. But nonetheless, I think they were in the same situation that the Tibetans were. They were going to lose their traditions, and so they took a chance and had some English speaking and Spanish speaking grad student write it all down. And so for about the first 10 years or so, he was more or less, he was okay-ish, right? Remember, he's a student, a junior student, but then he falls off the rails because he doesn't, I think his pride or something got to him. I don't know what happened exactly, but it wasn't good in my opinion. So only the second through the, let's say, the fifth book for now, right? But this one, if you don't have time to read, you only want to get to the one that is going to be most useful for people. Because the thing about any of these any of these approaches, you got to be a warrior. There's certain things that a warrior does. A warrior doesn't make assumptions. A warrior is honest, right? With himself, especially. A warrior, there's a whole list of things, right? I can't go into them now, but you got to be a warrior to do this work, right?
Yes.
I mean, even to be a tantric Buddhist, or to be a Zen, to be successful at Zen, you need to be a warrior, right? You've got to have self-respect and self-integrity and some courage and some energy and all the other things all kinds of things. Okay? So now I'm sorry. So you were talking about Krishnamurti and stopping the internal dialogue?
Yeah. Like, I'm just saying that internal dialogue will just hinder contemplation practice, because in a way I'm converting whatever experience I have into words because of internal dialogue.
What is the purpose of, are you talking contemplation or meditation?
Contemplation, especially on truth.
Give me an example. Give me an example.
Just like what I discussed earlier, contemplating on why I think about worst case scenarios, and then things pop up.
Contemplation is one of the paramitas, man. There's 6 paramitas. Contemplation / meditation, that's one of the paramitas. You can so the problem is you don't contemplate far enough. That's the issue, right? Or Donnie doesn't, whatever, right? People do a little contemplation. They say, oh, I can't do contemplation because that's more internal dialogue. No, that's actually just their ego trying to get in the way. If they went through with it and really contemplated where their thoughts come from, who's in charge of their thoughts, when do their thoughts occur, how long do their thoughts last, what changes their thoughts, how deep do the thoughts go, how fast do they go, how much space is there in between them. These are all questions that you need to answer. No one can answer them for you, but you need to answer them. And you need to have something of a warrior's mentality, because it doesn't take much of a warrior, but you got to do the contemplation. Right now, you're just finding reasons. Your ego, not you particularly, but people's ego finds any reason in the world to not do what it needs to do. Well, and we know why, because the ego doesn't want to die. The ego is fighting for dear life, and it's throwing up all kinds of strange things to get in the way. But if you adopt the stance of a warrior, you develop the internal rectitude of a warrior, which is appropriate for all young men and women, pretty much. I shouldn't say all. It's appropriate for some, right? And I think that it's appropriate for Donnie, appropriate for you, appropriate for most young men, right? Because it's also useful everywhere else in life, right? So a lot of this work is that, in order to wake up, you got to grow up somewhat. And then after you wake up, you got to grow up some more. So I wouldn't worry about stopping the internal dialogue right now. I would worry about understanding it. And then also I want you to come up with an example of somebody who stopped it, because that'll be fun to talk about. Okay, last question?
I have one question.
Good.
Yeah, so you said ego is afraid of itself.
Wait a minute. Question.
Yeah, so you said if ego is afraid of itself, so why do people still go ahead with suicide? Because
to relieve their suffering, or to punish somebody else. Oftentimes to punish somebody else, but sometimes to, because they can't see a way out. Can you think of any other reasons? Maybe they're in physical, because they're in a lot of physical distress, because they're so hopeless because of drugs or alcohol or something else, because they're really pissed off at their parents or their boyfriend or their wife or whatever, and they want to show them, who was right, or I told you so, right? People's egos will literally destroy the body for that kind of foolishness.
But can't ego see itself that it will lead to its end? Like, why isn't it afraid of that? Or that
it usually is afraid of it, but it's intoxicated, or it's deranged, or it's something's wrong with it, with the system, or it's so full of wrath, fury, right? I mean, why would somebody go to war? Why would a soldier go to war? Why would a Ukrainian or a Russian soldier go to battle and know that their chances of survival are less than 50-50, for example.
Right. Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? So, again, you have to be the explorer. You have to be the warrior. You have to be the psychologist. You have to be you have to find out for yourself. Nobody can do this for you, right? And of course, I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking about you. I'm using this as an example for the young men out there that feel lost, right? And there's quite a few of them. And when I say men, forgive me, I'm an old man. When I say men, I mean men and women. Maybe I should just start talking about women. So there's a lot of women out there who are lost and suffering, and they need to find their way, right? And so these questions, maybe it'll help, one or two of them or something. Okay. Final question.
Yep. Okay. No.
All right, sir. Keep the faith. Be a warrior.
Yeah.
And guard your mind. If you spend a lot of time scrolling on the doom screen, you're going to ruin your brain. Not your brain. Your brain will be okay. You're going to ruin your mind, and the next thing you know, you're an addict, and you can't bear to be off of it for very long. And now you're hooked, and the AIs have got you, right? Because they know exactly how to do that. They give you just the right kind of. They know how to do it because the AIs are smarter than we are, than an individual person can be, when it comes to defending themselves against that. So you got to have some discipline, right? Which is another paramita, right? So, all right, sir. Keep the faith.
Okay.
Take good care.